Hello, everyone. Hello, dear colleagues, dear members of the European Commission. Welcome to the fourth meeting of the IMCO committee. It's a pleasure to see all you here as we continue our work. So today's meeting is a really exciting and interesting one. I have to say that I'm saying that about all our meetings, but I promise today is also really interesting. Because today we'll have a debrief on the trilogue that we had yesterday. That will be presented by our rapporteur. Following her presentation, we'll hear the comments and the questions from the shadow rapporteur. And then we'll open the floor to everyone, to all of our dear members, for any further questions or remarks dedicated to the rapporteur. Then again, please make sure that your questions or comments are related to the proposal and the questions related to the trilogue yesterday. Warm welcome to the European Commission joining us today. They will provide us with some remarks at the end of our Q&A with the rapporteur. Also, just so you know, today's meeting will only last 1 hour and 30 minutes because after that we'll have a session feedback with the professors. So thank you. Let's get started. So as usual, the adoption of the agenda and the vote on the minutes. So in accordance with Article 163 of the Rules of Procedure, you received the agenda. Who is against the agenda? Thank you. So the agenda is adopted. The votes on the minutes, as usual, you can see them on our website. Who is against the minutes? Thank you. So the minutes are adopted. Moving on then to our third point of this meeting, we have the trilogue debrief by our rapporteur, Ms. Heischen-Bleikener. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yesterday afternoon, the first trilogues took place, which allowed us to get a first impression of the Council's position on the Commission proposal on the Transparency Directive. We started by going through every proposal, article by article. Each side presented their amendments and explained the rationale behind it. Together with the shadow rapporteurs, we introduced the Council to our amendments and listened to their explanations. After a short recess, we quickly went over a few specific articles, in particular Articles 4, 9, 11, 15, and 26, where the positions of the Council and of the Parliament were very similar and the amendments were minimal. On Article 9, the differences were regarding paragraph 4, where the Council proposed that the logs shall be deleted after 4 years instead of the proposed 1 year. The Parliament didn't propose any amendment on that time. However, I'm sure that we will find a compromise in the middle of that. Similar changes in Article 11, where the Parliament suggested to extend the deadlines from 5 working days to 10 working days, and the Council suggested 7 working days. Same rationale. We're not going to die on that hill. I'm sure we will find a compromise on that. Similar for Article 15, where we as the Parliament included amendments to prevent the weaponization of the national authorities and suggested changes such as the funding of the national authorities. The Council hasn't proposed such changes to Article 15. However, they have shown a lot of interest in our proposal, and I'm confident that we're going to find a compromise on this as well. And lastly, we talked about Article 26, about the transposition time of the directive. As expected, the Council asked for a prolonged transposition time of 36 months, where we suggested 12 months, and the original Commission proposal was 18 months. They also proposed a transposition in 2 phases, where 36 months might be too long for us. I think we will find a compromise regarding the transposition in 2 different phases. And I'm sure we can set a shorter deadline in which represents the interest of both institutions. I want to thank the Council for very fruitful and cooperative negotiations. We are starting technical trilogues tomorrow, where we will get into the technical parts, so really into the text, and find compromises where possible, and try to fight out our differences where needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the rapporteur for this debrief. Now we'll move on to the comments and the questions from the shadow rapporteur, who were also there yesterday during the trilogue, but who can also maybe comment on what happened yesterday and open the debate. So we'll start with the SND, with Ms. Lopez Iglesias.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First, I want to thank especially to the rapporteur and the shadow rapporteurs for defending and explaining the proposal during yesterday's trialogue. Unfortunately, I must mention the intervention made by the Patriots rapporteur yesterday. His contribution was not about defending the proposal, but rather the opposite. Let me be clear. This is not the time to make our work more difficult. If you are unwilling to stand by the compromise amendments in which you actively participated, I respectfully ask you to abstain from speaking. The S&D is very satisfied with the results of the last committee vote. We played an active role in shaping the compromise amendments that were passed, and we believe the proposal, as it stands, effectively tackles the issues at stake. Following yesterday's negotiations, one message must be emphasized. The Commission has expressed dissatisfaction with the minimum harmonization requirement proposed by both the Parliament and the Council. On this, we remain firm. The proposal must be defended in its current form, ensuring that Member States with already functional and protective systems are not forced to take a step back. However, we must view the proposal as a whole. Its success depends on achieving a delicate balance between allowing Member States to adapt their levels of protection while ensuring registers are not politicized. For this reason, I ask all political groups, and especially the rapporteur, to prioritize our amendments to Articles 15 and 19, which ensure a super level of control over national supervisory authorities. Without these measures, this directive risks becoming a foreign agent law, a direction the S&D is not willing to take. Yesterday was a very sad day for democracy. This guy, the one that my colleague is showing now, entered the government of the most powerful nation in the world. On the first day of his second term, President Donald Trump enacted several measures that jeopardize global cooperation and democratic values, such as removing the US from the Paris Agreement, pardoning individuals involved in the 2021 Capitol attack, and withdrawing the US from the World Health Organization. In a world that is becoming more individualistic, polarized, and dangerous, defending the European democratic values, it's not an option, it's a necessity. That said, I'm encouraged by the fact that the broad majority of the political groups here share the same goals. Let's unite forces to defend our common proposal, creating a system that serves an example of quality and fair regulation for all. Let's protect democracy. Let's protect Europe.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to, for the Patriots, Mr. Mochard-Dumont.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, dear citizens of the peoples of Europe, we were yesterday in trilogues between the Parliament, Council and Commission, so I will be addressing the three institutions. Our text last week in this chamber did not even start by addressing the very inadequate legal basis and put an even more European design to the text. But thank God, Europe is not just its parliament. Le général de Gaulle a dit, il ne peut y avoir d'autre Europe que celle des États, en dehors des mythes, des fictions, des parades. So thank God we also have a council with whom we find comfort. For exemption based on religious belief, we salute this idea from the council, which we also pushed ourselves in this chamber. We also salute their recognition of exemptions based on national security. These considerations are of immense importance. And now for the Commission. Le général de Gaulle se méfiait à juste titre de la Commission européenne. Gardienne des traités, est-elle encore au courant qu'une fois sa proposition législative déposée, elle est supposée agir en médiatrice impartiale ou, comme on le dit dans la bulle eurocrate, en honest broker? Hier, durant les trilogues, la Commission a fait du chantage à la Commission. Hier, en trilogue, la Commission a fait du chantage au Conseil et au Parlement. Il n'y a pas d'autre mot. Dès le début des négociations, il y a 2 semaines, nous l'avions rappelé en session ici même que la seule ligne rouge de la Commission était de ne pas retirer le texte. Et pourtant, c'est bien une menace de retirer le texte que la Commission a émis, dans le cas où nous refusions de nous plier à l'harmonisation totale. Ce bras de fer engagé par la Commission viole non seulement les principes qui régissent la procédure de codécision,
Thank you, Mr. Mochard-Dumont. Moving on to the ECR group with Mr. Renaud de Souza.
Thank you very much. I would like first to thank the rapporteur and all the shadow rapporteur for their work yesterday in the trilogues, as well as the council. I cannot say that much for the commission, but it is what it is. We can bring back from the ECR group several very nice recommendations from the council. We would like to point out the fact that they expressed an interest in excluding religious and beliefs communities from the scope of the directive, which is fully welcomed by the ECR group. We do believe that this brings flexibility to the member states and would allow them to respect their historical, cultural, and religious traditions, notably when it comes to the Catholic faith and the churches. We also believe the Council has made several recommendations going in our favor when it comes to longer transposition period and overall reduction of the burden, administrative burden that the member state should carry when transposing this directive. So this is on the Council side. When it comes to the Commission, as highlighted by my Patriots colleague, the Commission has let us know that they would pull the text in case of non-full harmonization, which disregards both the voices of the EU citizens as represented in the European Parliament and the governments as represented in the Council. As highlighted again by my Patriots colleague, when we first met with the Commission before the start of the negotiation, they told us that the only red line was a no pull of the text, that it should be adopted no matter what. So this change in the Commission position that is coming very late in the negotiations is an overall lack of respect to both our mandate and our constituents. The Commission has been acting in total bad faith, which is rather cynical for an institution claiming to defend transparency in the scope of this directive. Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to say that for the Secretariat who is writing the minutes, I would like to, according to Rule of Procedure Annex 1, Rule 10, would like please to be written that my colleague, Mr. Mochard-Dumont, said that the écolo called the Green Group les écolos totalitaires, and I would please like to remind Mr. Mochard-Dumont to be respectful with their colleagues. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to the Renew Group, Ms. Wen.
Merci, Madame Présidente. I would like to begin by thanking the rapporteur and my fellow shadow rapporteurs for their contributions at yesterday's trilogue and their commitment to defending the position of the European Parliament, with which we as Renew are largely in agreement. Constructive discussions were had by all parties, which will hopefully, with time, bear fruit over the coming days. As discussions progress, we as Renew would like to underline the importance that the explicit inclusion of digital as well as more traditional forms of interest representation remain at the forefront. Not to do so would have the effect of rendering this much needed legislation toothless. We cannot allow that to happen. We also applaud the Parliament's decision to make provisions for large entities, which we believe constitutes a crucial step towards dealing with the issue at hand, ensuring transparency on the part of those who have the capacity to do the most damage through the sheer scale of their impact, and more meaningful sanctions for those who fail to comply. I would, however, Madam President, like to draw the attention of colleagues to an interesting and concerning observation that may have so far passed unnoticed. When voting is obscured behind letters and numbers on a list, pluses and minuses, it can be easy to overlook the full implications of what one is voting for or against, and for this to go unnoticed. As such, we were disappointed to witness the EPP, S&D, Greens, and in fact all party groups, with the honourable exception of our colleagues in the ECR, to their credit, voting against the inclusion of this. Our European values as laid out in Article 2 of the Treaty on the European Union, the very foundation upon which our union is built, democracy and the rule of law. Yes, indeed, democracy, the rule of law. In fact, the very thing that this directive seeks to protect. Let that sink in for a moment. Whether this decision was taken because colleagues do not in fact support EU values, democracy and the rule of law, or because they see them as a bargaining chip, is unclear. I would like to remind colleagues that such important issues as our fundamental values are not a bargaining chip. Democracy is not a bargaining chip. The inclusion of Article 2 TEU can only serve to strengthen the text and to differentiate our text from those of countries who we have previously, and rightly, criticised for enacting foreign agent laws, which is, as I understand it, one of the key concerns of member states like Germany, who, I understand, are still not persuaded to support this directive that we so badly need to go through. I implore you, fellow colleagues, to think, and think again, and bear this important point in mind as the negotiations progress through trilogues with Council and Commission. Let us not have to rely on the Council to remind us of our European values. Thank you.
Thank you. Now for the Greens, Mr. Menet.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Madam Rapporteur, for your dedicated work and for the compelling defense of the Parliament position yesterday. We're encouraged to see that many of the key improvements made to the text, such as the creation of an EU-level platform for national data, harsher sanctions, and safeguards to address the risk of stigmatizations, are also supported by the Council. However, we must remain vigilant. We already gave up the full harmonization surrounding before even starting the fight with the Council. And now some proposals from Member States risk undermining furthermore the very objectives of this directive. For example, the proposed expansion of the scope to include vaguely defined critical areas and the introduction of the two-phase implementation process that targets in the first time only entities deemed to pose, I quote, the highest potential risk to democratic processes would, in our view, harm the clarity and fairness that this directive aims to achieve. We must firmly defend a fair and proportionate text. This means limiting as much as possible the use of vague or easily weaponized terms that could allow member states to distort the directive to fit the national agendas. Our focus must remain on protecting democratic integrity across the Union in a clear, consistent, and balanced manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Menet. And last but not least, for the left, Ms. Naka.
I would like to start by thanking the Rapporteur and the Secretariat for their continued hard work, my fellow shadow rapporteurs and colleagues, and extend further support for the comments made by S&D Rapporteur about the concerning global trends perpetuated by yesterday's inauguration of Donald Trump. In the same vein, the Commission's comments reflect the democratic deficit that plagued the Commission itself and their lack of understanding in how to effectively protect and represent European citizens. From the beginning, we have said that this text is long, complex, and necessitates much of our attention to ensure it serves its intended purpose. But as the Rapporteur has already said, we can see several areas of convergence with the Council, a promising starting point before we tackle the most contentious areas of the text. It is likewise a good thing that the Council shares many of the same concerns about the omissions in the original proposal, including on core funding. As the left, we were delighted that our proposed amendment to broaden the scope and include large entities received cross-party support. It is essential for us to combat the disproportionate influence that these entities have on policymaking, which inherently represent the interests of third countries. Some of the colleagues in the EU have confused representation of European citizens with financial gain that perpetuates elitist rhetorics. It is therefore encouraging that the Council has thought of the same concerns and are exploring the purpose of this directive with the same gravity that it deserves. There was one thing missing yesterday, however, a distinct lack of discussion about the safeguards we need to include for CSOs, and therefore extended the intention to pay more attention to this in our subsequent meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to the Q&A session with the rapporteur. So what we'll do is yes, I think it will be easier. And if the rapporteur is okay, we do one question, one answer, right? Great. So we'll open the floor to everyone. Please try to be as quick as possible in your questions, because if it's too broad, then it will be, I think, too much confusion. Also, try to be as precise as possible if you want for your question. Please only refer to the text and to any questions related to the trilogue of yesterday, so that the discussion is coherent and we can move forward. Thank you. So I'll open the floor. Any question? Okay. Okay, so for EPP, have Ms. Georgiadou? Yes.
Dear Chair, thanks for giving me the floor. The question I want to pose towards the rapporteur is the following. As the rapporteur of the current file, would you consider yourself satisfied with the direction the negotiations are currently taking in trilogues? If there are things you would like to change or improve in the process, what will they be? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So far, I'm very pleased with the direction that the file is going in. The negotiations, as I've mentioned a few days ago, they were long but very fruitful and cooperative. All the groups were open to compromises, and I'm very happy with the common position, with the report that we got, and the position that I have to defend in trilogue. So far, trilogues. They went very well. We didn't have the time to go very into depth on articles just because of timing issues. We got to see the position of the council. They got to see ours. We saw the articles where we have more common ground than on others. But I'm confident that we will continue this way and find a compromise on many issues.
Thank you. SND, I think I had Miss Dois Reis Barrera. Sorry for the pronunciation.
No worries. Thank you, Chair. Good morning to everyone. So I'm MEP SND Spain, and my question was, as well as we saw in the media this morning, Article 26 on the transposition will be one of the main bones of contention. And please say if after the first round of negotiations, ambitious 12 months of transpositions is something we can look forward to be retained or not. Thank you.
So the articles that we discussed yesterday that were more in depth, that were those where we would have more in common than differences. The transposition time in Article 26, that was something that we expected, which is why the Parliament suggested 12 months. We knew that the Council would go much further than that, and the idea was to find something in the middle. So I think if we agree something between 18 or 24 months, I think that is where we're striving, and I think we can be very happy with that because we pushed for a more quick transposition. The Council, as I said before, the Council, they suggested a transposition in 2 phases so that the member states would have wouldn't be too overwhelmed with the transposition. I think that is very reasonable because the playing field is not very even throughout the EU. So some member states need more support, need more time than others. I think transposition in 2 phases is reasonable. If we push for a shorter amount of time than what the Council wanted, I think that would be a compromise that we are willing to make. Thank you.
Thank you. For the Greens, we have Ms. Devereux.
Thank you to the rapporteur and the shadows for representing IMCO with the first trilogue. We've heard so far from the shadows that it sounds like it might be in many ways quite difficult negotiation coming up for Parliament. However, it also sounds like there could be some scope for negotiation on several points between the institutions. So, for example, the Council's new Article 20 calls for a centralised and interoperable EU platform so national authorities can have access to the data in the registers of all other registers for increased transparency. This is similar to an idea proposed by the Greens, and I think it could work well alongside the amendment which IMCO collectively agreed about the EU-wide transparency register. And in addition, it sounds like there could be support for IMCO's proposal about a lower sanctions rate for smaller organisations from the Council. So my question is, does the rapporteur agree that these are 2 areas where we could easily find agreement with other parties and make quick progress on this important file?
Absolutely. What the Council introduced in their new Article 20 is similar to what we as a Parliament, and especially you as the Greens, have introduced in Article 12. This will be subject in the technical trilogues, which are starting tomorrow, where it's more about finding the right wording. This is a topic that we obviously have a lot of common ground on. The Council has similar concerns as we do. So now it's just more or less just only a question of, do we introduce this in a new article or do we keep it in Article 12? I think we're not gonna let ourselves get hung up on technicalities or whether we want to keep this in Article 12 or create a new article. But the most important thing is to the content of the changes, and that those are part of the Finnish directive. And the second part was the sanctions. Yes. So the Council, they have shown, as far as I remember, they didn't introduce that many amendments on the sanctions, but they were very open to our changes, and they agreed that the sanctions for bigger players and for smaller players shouldn't be the same, but that there should be some kind of differentiation. So I'm sure we will find some common ground there as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think for the Patriots, did I see Mr. Romero? Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Simon Romero, Hungarian MEP from Patriots. I would just like first to address our esteemed colleagues from the Socialist Group. This doesn't look like a collaboration attitude. It saddens me that you adopted a populist style of communication as first part of your speech. I've never seen you showing Soros pictures, and no, I have never seen you complain about socialist philanthropists. Now that a philanthropist of another political family gains attention to the media and to the notoriety, he immediately becomes a threat to democracy. Once again, if these are not double standards, I don't know how to call them. To go back to the topic, since once again it seems to be a misalignment between the agenda and the issue and the topic that I would like to raise. I just address the rapporteur, thanking her for the presentation, even though, in my opinion, she didn't mention the most important issue raised yesterday, meaning Article 4. So the question is the following. Is that true that the Commission posed a red line about the full harmonization among member states? And if so, how do you envisage to defend the interests of the Parliament? To me, if this it's true, it would sound like a threat. And we all know that this was esteemed colleague, a topic that was raised yesterday and during the trilogues. And it is a shame that no rapporteur raised the issue before, but my esteemed rapporteur. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your questions. It is true that the Commission has a different stance on harmonization that we do. However, this is not a surprise. We knew that they would defend their proposal. I agreed that the extent to which they are going to defend their proposal was new to us. We weren't aware of this. But this is how trilogues work. Every institution is going to defend their position, and at the end, we're going to come up with something that kind of lies in the middle of all of this. My job is to defend the mandate that you gave me last week, and I am going to do that. I'm going to defend the position that we agreed on, which is the one on minimum harmonization. I still feel like this is the right way to go. I feel like this minimum harmonization is more effective and suits the objectives of the directive better than full harmonization does. And this is what I'm going to go forward with. And the reason that I didn't mention it before was that this issue became very sensitive yesterday, and I am going to be very careful with my words and I would like to avoid saying anything that would harm our position within the trilogues, which is the reason why I didn't mention it before. It's not because I changed my mind or the position of the Parliament on this issue. It is just a precaution measure, if you want it like that.
Thank you. For ECR, we had Monsieur Magnier de Maisonneuve.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, dear rapporteur. First, I want to draw the attention to Ms. Wen. Democracy is fighting for the freedom of people, not sitting in your ivory tower moralizing people. This may have been possible when you're the third largest group of the EP, but I do want to remind you, you're now the fifth. Now listen closely. Democracy is reinforcing patriotism and Christianity throughout Europe. It is fundamental today to fight against the wokest wave taking over Europe and the West. I want to echo what my shadow rapporteur had to say. We are in favor of a directive that pushes for the spread and upkeep of Christian values across Europe. I also want to highlight my satisfaction with Mr. Trump's victory, inauguration, and first policy choices. The Canal of Panama and Greenland belongs to America, and the Republic of Moldova to Romania. We need all the help in the world to achieve this. I'm coming to it, Ms. Chair.
I can talk louder than you, so please, we said stick to the questions, to the trilogues.
Consequentially, I want to know if the rapporteur thinks is this democracy, silencing your MEP? No. Consequently, I want to know if the rapporteur thinks that the exemption of activities carried out by third countries connected to religious beliefs will stay in the final text. We need an answer.
No. Let me elaborate. My mandate is to defend the position that the Parliament adopted on Saturday, and that is what I am going to do. Your amendments regarding exemptions for organizations that support patriotic Christian values, they were not adopted, and therefore I'm not going to defend them because they are not part of the final position of the Parliament. That is my job.
Thank you. For the left, Mr. Passo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Benjamin Passo, MEP, the left, Sweden. Madam Rapporteur, you did not mention the legal basis in your introduction, and we heard in the lobby that several countries in the Council want to change the legal basis, especially on the question of defense, national defense, politique, and not about internal markets. So I'd like to know your position because we as the left, we did not amend the text on the legal basis, but we think that's a critical question for this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. In yesterday's trilogue, we didn't go into depth on the legal basis. That is because a change of the legal basis is not part of the Council's common position right now, and that is neither the case for the Parliament. We stick to Article 114, which I still think is the right legal basis. A switch to CFSP or any other legal basis that has been discussed, I think, is not right for the purpose and objective of this directive. Therefore, I will stick to 114 because that is in my mandate and that is what I have to defend. The position of the Council can change. If that is the case, if they will change their position on the legal basis, we would have to see it when we go down that road. However, I don't want to speculate anything. I know that there are some member states that are not happy with the legal basis. However, they're apparently in the minority because it didn't become the common position of the Council. Therefore, I can't take a position on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Ms. Asiago for Renew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. MEP Renew Bulgaria. Madam Rapporteur, thank you so much for the very short but very detailed overview that you gave regarding where the negotiations are at this moment. My question to you would be, you mentioned in your speech that there are some articles that you did not get to during the negotiations of the trilogue. And my question with that is, do you foresee some articles where the Council is bound to push back a lot harder and therefore will be a lot more contentious during the negotiations?
I'm sure we will get there. Once we get there, I'm sure that there are articles that the Council really pushes for. As far as I remember, there aren't that many where we have such different positions that I don't see any compromise on. Our concerns and the Council concerns were a lot similar in a lot of regards. And that is what I'm going to focus on in the beginning. We're starting technical trilogues tomorrow, which weren't scheduled, but we felt the need to add more trilogue sessions because we knew that this is going to be long negotiations. So starting from tomorrow, we're going to get deep into the text. I'm sorry, I don't have the text before me, so I'm afraid I can't give you the detailed articles that the Council has a very different on which the Council has a very different position that we do. But I know that they are very few, and that on most articles and most amendments we do have similar concerns, and therefore I'm sure that we're going to find a compromise on. Thank you.
Thank you. For SND, I think we had Mr. Lukatis.
Thank you, Chair, for the recognition. Thank you, Madam Rapporteur. Thank you for the shadows. I have a question.
Also, sorry, I'm sorry for all of you. Please don't forget to state your country and
SND, Germany, Les Localities. I have a question again for the sanctions. In Article 22, when it comes to the sanction on natural person, the Parliament proposed 5,000 euros sanctions to natural person, and the Council is pushing for 15. With many member states wanting to higher the sanction when it comes to the natural person. So my question is, how are you willing to bridge this gap during the negotiation? Thank you.
So both the Parliament and the Council, they agreed that the sanctions would have to be increased to ensure the effectiveness of the directive. The 1% that we find in the original Commission proposal would just not be enough, and we thought that would motivate players to just circumvent the rules and instead just pay the fines. We want players of any size to comply with the rules, which is why we propose this differentiated approach depending on the size of the entity. We increased the sanction for natural persons from 1,000, which we find in the proposal, to 5,000, and we were very surprised when we saw that the council suggested 15,000, because we already thought that our 5,000 were on the upper end. We would have to go back and look at the playing field. Are there that many natural persons acting in this area, or I believe it is mostly legal entities, bless you, and which I still think we have to increase the fine for natural persons. However, 15,000 does seem too high for me. I think we would agree on something below 10,000.
Thank you. For EPP, I think we had, yes, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you. From APP, representing Sweden. First of all, thank you very much, Madam Rapporteur, for your job once more. I just would like to ask you regarding Politico published today some predictions related to potential articles of contention, like Articles 11 and 26. So could you just clear up that this is just pure sensationalism and that talks are going smoothly and indeed would reach final agreements? Thank you.
Politico might have gotten their facts wrong on that. The articles that I mentioned were those that we had the most common stance on. We wanted to get those more or less out of the way and see that we can get through them quickly in technical trilogues. But on Article 26, as well as on, I think, 11 you mentioned, those are both that had relatively minor changes to them from both Parliament and Council, especially Article 11, where both institutions only changed the duration from 5 working days to us 10 working days. The Council suggested 7 working days. And same as I said before with the transposition time. These are changes that we're going to get through pretty quickly, and that I'm confident that we're going to find a compromise on pretty quickly. I don't want to get hung up on working days when in trilogue or when in negotiations. These are minor changes, and we should get them out of the way as quickly as possible. I think there are more important changes that I want to focus on and that I want to spend more time on during the negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you. I think for the Patriots, let's see, Ms. Kortanitze, or yes?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. Madam Rapporteur, during our initial meetings, my group has made it clear that the Commission should have withdrawn the text. And at the first committee meeting, you also openly criticized the text, describing it as deeply flawed and in need of significant improvement. Despite of all of this, you have held your strong position to make it work and improve the text. While you, the shadows, and our colleagues have worked hard on the amendments, the Commission has posed an ultimatum, strongly opposing key elements like full harmonization and even threatening to withdraw the text. I know this is a sensitive issue at the moment, but I think we still need an answer. Do you think that your and our colleagues' efforts have been undermined and have become futile? And also your work as a rapporteur, what is your opinion of that? And given the Commission's outright position right now, do you think that the Parliament and the Council can salvage the issue?
I can't speak for the Commission. I don't know what the Commission is going to do, and I'm not going to tell them what to do. As I said before, I am going to defend the position that we adopted on Saturday. That is my mandate, and that is my job to do. That is what I have to do. And in that, it says clearly in Article 4 that we want minimum harmonization. As I said before as well, I'm not going to let any institution, part of the trilogue, blackmail us. I'm not going to let anyone tell us how to do our job. I am going to defend minimum harmonization, and that is what we're going to move forward with. I think that the proposal that we have, or the report that we have, is very ambitious. It's very good. It achieves the objectives of the directive. I feel like the changes that the council proposes are very sensible as well. I see a lot of common ground here. I see a lot of compromises to be made that will further strengthen the proposal and will take into account not only the Parliament's position, but the one from the member states as well. The role that the Commission here plays is up to them. I will let them to do their job, and I expect them to let us do our job as well. Thank you.
Thank you. For ESN, Ms. Hen.
Good morning, Rapporteur. Thank you for your work in the trilogues. I am Mao N, ESN MEP from Bulgaria. Regarding Article 16, paragraph 3A on information requests, the Council is currently pushing for extremely low thresholds at around 200,000 euros, when our IMCO position advocates for 2 million euros. The Council's position could harm CSOs and SMEs. Will you fight for higher thresholds?
Yes, definitely. This is, we didn't discuss this in depth yesterday. This will be subject of further negotiations in the technical trilogues. This is one point where Council position and Parliament position are very far apart. The Council is 1/10 of our stance. Our position was ambitious because we knew that we would have to compromise on that. 200,000 is way too low. We're not going to settle on that. I can't tell you the definite number because we haven't discussed it yet, but it will be much higher than 200,000. Thank you.
Thank you. For the Greens, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you very much, Chair. Leopoldo Garcia from the Greens France asking. In the same line as previous questions, but in a different tone, most member states and groups in Parliament have expressed their opposition to full harmonization, a proposal coming from the Commission that, after thorough discussion within the Greens, we see as offering clear benefits and minimal risks. The Commission has adopted a firm stance, even suggesting to withdraw the text if full harmonization is not included, and their intransigent position has been criticized in this forum, but at the same time you have adopted a similar red line, but in the opposing direction. This is minimum harmonization being a red line. In this scenario, the only possibilities that we can think of are an open interinstitutional fight in which no one wins, or finding a middle ground between both. Our question for the rapporteur: as the Parliament's representative in the trilogues, would you say that your position on harmonization, the one that you're defending in the trilogues, is the same as the one from the Council, which would mean that we have surrendered to the will of member states and forgot that our mandate stems from citizens? And if the answer to this question is yes, which we fear, would you be willing to adopt a real middle ground between the Commission's proposal and the Council position, thus trying to accommodate their divergent positions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. As I said before, I am going to defend the Parliament's position that we have adopted on Saturday. I know the Council's position is very similar. They push for minimum harmonization as well. I'm sure there are member states that that would rather have full harmonization. I don't know the ratio, but they're apparently in minority, otherwise this wouldn't have been adopted. If the negotiations in trilogue are between the Council and the Parliament, they are the main negotiation partners because they are the legislators. The Commission's role is to mediate between them. They are going to, of course, defend their proposal for, with full harmonization. That is completely understandable. If they feel like the negotiations don't go in a direction that they are comfortable with or that they want to see or on which they can compromise on, they have the right to withdraw the proposal and come up with a new one. I have expressed concerns about the proposal from the very beginning. However, I also feel like we have made much needed and very good, very constructive changes to the proposal. I feel like the way it is now is a very strong position and which I'm going to defend. However, I cannot, as I said before, control what the Commission is going to do. If they want to withdraw, I cannot legally and in any other way stop them from doing so. I think that that would be really a measure of last resort. I much more prefer this going forward between us and the Council. I think there is so much common ground that it would be a shame to throw it out. And therefore, I urge the Commission to not withdraw, but to work with the Council and the Parliament in a constructive way to find compromises wherever possible. However, as I said, if they feel like they can't do so, I cannot stop them from withdrawing. And what was the second part, or is this your question? Or?
Yeah, thank you very much for answering the first part. Second part was if you were willing to go maybe lower on your stances to find a real common ground and a middle ground between both extreme positions that the Council and Commissioner are defending. Thank you very much.
As I said in the last IMCO before the deadline for the amendments, I urged on everyone to keep an open mind when it came to amendments, and I would be hypocritical if I didn't keep that myself. I am keeping an open mind on our entire position. It is my job to defend it. However, it is also my job to find a compromise and to get this directive to life. And I am open for compromises wherever possible. And yes, that's it.
Thank you. Oh yeah, for Renew, Mr. Alger. I'm so sorry again for the name.
Thank you so much for the word, Madam President. Oskar Algöre, Renew from Germany. First of all, I would like to remind my colleague representing the ECR from Romania what democracy is. Democracy is following the common rules of procedure. And after that, you respect the common decisions taken by that, by the Assembly. And if you follow these two rules, which we do in Renew, these are the values we defend, you would pretty easily already have the answer to the question you asked, Madam Rapporteur. So speaking of democracy, Madam Rapporteur, for us in Renew, we would really like to know how does the Council, where's the Council's position on the justification on this proposal in regard to Article 2 of the TEU. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm afraid I can't give you a very detailed answer to that because I don't have insight into the internal negotiations of the Council. I don't know exactly their stance on Article 2 or the inclusion thereof. I know we didn't include it in the articles, neither in the legal basis, because Article 2 is no legal basis. But we have made references to it in the recitals, and that is what we're going to move forward with. If you want to have a, I'm sorry, are you surviving? If you want to have a more detailed position on, or the internal discussions within the council, I'm afraid you're going to have to talk to the member states directly, because I don't have insights into their position on that, and it didn't come up yesterday in trilogue either.
Thank you. For EPP, we have Ms. Fernandez Viagas. No? Okay, so Mr. Uzun, right? Wait, someone is getting your mic.
Thank you very much for the floor. Ardamat Shehan, EPP from Ireland. So far, so good. All my questions are covered by the fellow MEPs. Thank you all. Especially, I was also wondering how the talks on Article 4 went. You mentioned the issue is very sensitive, and I give my full respect to that. And as our reporter, we definitely count on you on this matter, and we have no doubt about your dedication to defending the Parliament's position. However, the issue is also very sensitive for the people of Ireland, and it's very sensitive for my colleagues in the Parliament from different member states and from different party groups. Rightfully, since you don't prefer to speak about the Commission position here, maybe the Commissioner, who is our guest in this house today, would like to briefly elaborate on their position and reasoning on this issue during the intervention by the Commission as well. Thank you.
Well, the Commission is going to give an intervention afterwards. The position in trilogue yesterday on Article 4, as I mentioned before, the negotiations in trilogue are between the Parliament and the Council, and the positions of the Parliament and the Council on Article 4 are very similar. We both want minimum harmonization. So the negotiations on Article 4 went very well. We discussed it quickly. It will be an issue in the technical trilogue starting tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. For SND, Ms. Kobe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Rapporteur, I am glad to hear that you're going to defend your mandate and our position now that you are aware of the red lines of the Commission. But I want to really understand, are you ready to make concession to match the position of the Commission to avoid blockages and to go forward with the discussion? Because, as you mentioned, if this text is withdrawn, it's our responsibility, and we need to avoid that for both the EU and its citizens. Thank you.
Sorry, could you repeat the first part of your question?
Sorry, so I was saying that I'm really glad that you're going to defend our position, but are you ready to make some concession to match the position of the Commission as it is for now the main threat to go forward with the discussion, to avoid blockages and just to go forward and to make sure that this directive makes sense at the end? Thank you.
As I said before, I'm always going to keep an open mind, and I'm always open to compromise, to encompass as many positions as possible, to make as many people as possible happy. However, this is also part of democracy, that it's impossible to make everyone super happy. We're always looking for a common ground, which sometimes is the common denominator. That's it. I am willing to make concessions to the Commission or to the Council if they are willing to make concessions to us. And that is what I'm fighting for. I'm defending our mandate, and we'll see how the discussions with the institutions in trilogue are going to continue. Thank you.
For ECR, I think we have Mr. Renaud de Souza.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to go back to Article 3, Paragraph 2, as amended by the Council. So again, to remind you, which provides further exemption for religious and belief communities from the scope of the directive. As you already mentioned, when you answered my colleague's question, you will defend the position of the European Parliament, which is like, I do get this. Not to include any exemptions for such communities. However, I would like to remind you that Romania, the member states for which you are an MEP for, is the most religious member state in the EU, with 99% of its citizens identifying as Christians. So this basically gives you two choices, either betraying the EP position or betraying your own constituents who gave you this mandate in the first place. So my question is, which one will you betray?
Well, thank you for the ultimatum. I'm afraid I can only lose with that. I am from Romania, and it is my responsibility to represent the people from Romania in the EPP. It is also my responsibility within this file to defend the position of the Parliament, and which we adopted on Saturday, in which we did not include your amendments on patriotic or organizations with Christian values and so on. The EU is a community of great diversity, which is also at the same time its greatest strength. It is not only a community of Christianity. We have great diversity in religious aspects, when it comes to lifestyles, when it comes to life choices. And I'm very proud and happy to defend this position, which is, in my view, the main reason why we should not include an amendment that focuses on one religion specifically. But you said Christianity. I don't want to include amendments that reduce the entities to any religion, and we don't have to really discuss this a lot because it was not adopted, and it was not adopted because it doesn't represent the point of view of the majority of the people here. So it's which is why I don't have to defend it in trilogue. And your question was this, or what was it exactly? Sorry. It's been answered. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I think ECR, we had Mr. Crooks, right? PFE, sorry, my bad.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as always, I remain Samuel Crooks, MEP for the Patriots for Europe from Austria. Maybe one day I will change my name, but not yet. Firstly, I would like to thank my fellow members and colleagues from the IMCO Secretariat and from the Commission for the time that they've devoted so far to this directive. We had some marathon sessions last week. We've all been tired. We've all been feeling a little bit emotional at times, but we're getting through it, and it's very encouraging to see the progress that's been made. However, Madam Rapporteur, significant concerns do remain at a time when the Commission is apparently trying to strong-arm our committee on the issue of full harmonisation today, and when the Shadow Rapporteur from the S&D makes the repugnant demand to my fellow Rapporteur from the Patriots to remain silent on topics of political debate that are relevant. We need to go on the offensive to get the best outcome possible. We want exemptions for religious organisations from this directive's provisions. We want an end to the absurd EU-level register so that member states can get on with doing the job themselves with their own member state registers. Madam Rapporteur, if you and the rest of us from this Parliament are not willing to fight on the hill for this directive, we will die in a ditch instead. Can you promise us today that when you sit down in the next trilogue, you will listen to the views of all groups in this Parliament, that you will listen to the views of all citizens across our European Union, and that you will roll up your sleeves and show the Commission and the Council who's boss?
I believe I have shown cooperation with all parties across this committee. All shadows were part of the negotiations. We tried to include as many points of views in our compromise amendments as possible. It's not always possible because sometimes views just diverge too much, and we have to find a common stance which excludes some parties. The EPP has not been part of every compromised amendments. Some compromised amendments were done without the EPP because other parties agreed on that point of view, and that is their prerogative. They have the right to do so if they find a majority. That is how it works. Did I love those compromised amendments? No, but I accept them and they were adopted, so I'm going to defend them in trilogues. As I mentioned many times before, it's my job to defend the position of the parliament that has been adopted on Saturday, and that is what I'm going to do. I'm not overwhelmed by all amendments. I'm very happy with the positions that we have, but there were some amendments that were adopted that I did not vote for. But that is how democracy works, and that is how this committee works, and that is how it should work. That is good. And I will not promise anything. I can only promise to defend the position that we adopted. I will not include religious organizations because they were not part of the amendments, so they're not part of the EP's position. So I even if I wanted to, I couldn't defend it. I hope this answers your question. Thank you.
For ESN, Ms. Mardinian.
Madam Rapporteur, thank you for all your valuable and diligent work so far. I am an MEP for ESN from Germany. The Council has proposed granting the Commission the right to adopt implementing acts in Article 10, paragraph 9. Are you willing to make concessions on implementing acts, given that our proposal to remove delegated acts from the text was rejected? Thank you.
I'm afraid I can't give any more a more detailed answer to this because Article 10 wasn't part of the in-depth negotiations yesterday, so I can't give you a detailed position on the changes that the Council proposed. Technical trilogues will start tomorrow. I don't know if we will get to Article 10 tomorrow, but surely within the next coming days, within the upcoming days. And I can give you a more detailed update later on. Thank you.
Thank you. For EPP, Ms. Fernandez. Diagas.
Good afternoon. I'm a Hungarian MEP from the EPP. And Madam Rapporteur, so far you mentioned that you were very pleased with how the trilogues were going. I'd like to go in a bit more depth on how the Council views the long-term impact of this directive, particularly on public trust in EU institutions and the decision process in general. Are there any particular concerns from the Council that could pose a real threat to the success of this directive, such initial concerns like subsidiarity, for example, that some member states were particularly worried about that? Thank you.
Thank you. As I said before, the Council had similar concerns as we did. Therefore, they suggested similar amendments that we did, not on all articles, but on a lot. Especially, they did show a lot of openness regarding our changes to Article 15, where we wanted to make sure that the national authorities wouldn't become political weapons, or we wanted to avoid the risk of underfunding those authorities and so on. They didn't propose any similar changes to that, but they showed a lot of interest in that. So I think we can stick to our position there and convince them of our amendments. Sorry, what was the second part? The subsidiary. No, these concerns did not come up yesterday. I think the Council wants to move forward on this as much as we do. They're very open. The negotiations were very constructive, and I'm very much looking forward to the next trilogues.
Thank you. I think for SND, add Mr. Cornet. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gilles Cornet from SND Croatia. Talking about religion, it is now common information in Bruges that the Council wants to introduce an exception to Article 3 about religious group. Can you elaborate on that? Do you think it's negotiable, and what will be your position? Do you think it's doable?
We didn't go into depth on Article 3. They will be part of the technical trialogue starting tomorrow, which is why I can't give you any details on that. We are still finding our position on the Council's amendments. We're still finding or looking for ways on how to compromise on them. I can't give you a much more detailed answer because I don't have the information. Thank you.
And because of time constraint, we're going to take one last question, and then we'll have the Commission giving us a few words. So for the left, Ms. Naka.
Thank you. So I wanted to go back to Article 20 as proposed by the Council and the corresponding position about the EU centralized database. Obviously, we voiced some concern as the left. It was quite stark to me that in our approach, but also in the Council's, there was no mention of data protection, anything in this regard. Can we count on the rapporteur in the next trilogue to raise these important questions about data protection and increase the data protections within this scope? Thank you.
Thank you. So the Council introduced a similar amendment in their new Article 20 as we did in Article 12. They kind of correspond here. We have added references to the GDPR throughout the text. And it is, of course, one of our priorities to make sure that entities or member states comply with data protection rules, with transparency. These are the main principles that we want to see, and that corresponds to Article 12 or 20 as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the rapporteur. I really want to thank the rapporteur again for replying to all of our questions, for all the work she is putting to defend the EP's position, also to defend EU citizens. A reminder that, like she mentioned several times, but I feel like for some people it's not really clear, the rapporteur is defending the position that the EP has voted on Saturday. So that's why for some questions that were related to former compromise or former amendments, she can't say more than that because they were not voted. So they are not on the table anymore. So thank you for the rapporteur. And now I'd like to give the floor to the Commissioner for a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Esteemed members of the European Parliament, esteemed Chair, esteemed Rapporteur and Shadow Rapporteurs. It is an honor and a pleasure to be able to speak to you today as we advance into the trilogues on this crucial text on transparency. The European Commission has been looking forward to this very moment since President von der Leyen addressed the plenary of the Parliament in 2022 in her State of the Union address. Dressed in blue and yellow, the colors of the Ukrainian nation that had come under attack from the force of autocracy that very same year, she stated that we needed to do more to protect our democracy. As we have repeated many times, this proposal is crucial to achieving this objective. Democracy is not won forever. It must be watered and maintained. Transparency on the foreign forces trying to influence our democracy is a crucial part of that. Simultaneously, we must ensure that whilst pursuing this goal, we do not move towards anything like a foreign agent law that penalizes dissent and stifles expression. Yesterday, we participated in a productive trilogue with the representatives of this institution and the Council. Points of agreement and disagreement were mapped out, and tough questions were already posed. In this exercise, where the co-legislators are leading the dance, the Commission is committed to balancing its role as guardian of the treaties and honest broker between the co-legislators. This is a difficult task, but a necessary one to ensure transparency and democracy in the Union. We look forward to the next steps of this process in tomorrow's trilogues and are open to hearing any concerns any of you, members of Parliament, may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the Commission. I think we can finish a bit early so that we have maybe more feedbacks from the professors and the AAs. So just so you know, okay, thank you. First of all, I want to thank you all again for your participation. I really appreciate that for every IMCO committee, all of you want to engage, participate, question. I want to thank the rapporteur once again, as she's trying to be as transparent as possible to tell this committee how the trilogues are moving and how the negotiations are going. Like mentioned, the Parliament will host a technical trilogue tomorrow morning before going to the Council, when they will host the second trilogue. So we'll move on, of course, on the negotiation. Also, quick reminder, next meeting will take place on the 23rd, so on Thursday at 10 a.m. In the same room. So thank you so much. This session is adjourned, and have a good day.